Okay, you guys are ready?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. How's it going, everyone? Welcome to the InkGuild Podcast, episode 3. Of course, I'm Dean, and I'm joined today... Fuck. Shit. Damn it! That's the one time I flubbed the intro. How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the InkGuild Podcast. Of course, I'm Dean, and in this episode, I'm joined by Mark and Gabe. If you guys want to quickly say hi.
Hello.
Howdy.
Cool. So, some of you guys might not recognize Mark's voice, and that's just because he's decided to make his debut with us today. And like us, and like all of us who have spoken already, he is a fellow writer. We all had we've all met in the same class, as of this recording, and I guess, we're continuing on the trend of getting to know each other through, conversation, whatever. So I guess I'll quickly pass it off to Mark by asking, how did you get started on writing, dude?
It started when I was young. I was a big reader as a kid. My favorites were the Great Illustrated Classics. So it was like the really simplified versions of the big novels, Count of Monte Cristo, Robinson Crusoe, that kind of stuff.
Ooh.
And
how'd you get your hands on like some of those books? Like, were they from like parents or friends or?
Yeah, my parents. They used to like sell them at Walmart. They were like $5 a piece.
Oh wow, that's pretty good.
So it was like, yeah, right. So it was like a Christmas tradition. We'd get at least one every year.
So
yeah, it was pretty sweet.
Yeah. So what kind of thing? So like reading a lot as a kid, what kind of made you like really want to become a writer in the first place? So like,
It's
was
hard
it because
to pinpoint, to be honest.
Yeah, so like I guess in like the last couple episodes I was talking with Jessica, and something that was familiar between her and I was we both had a lot of fun doing school assignments, which meant we kind of decided to write whatever we wanted to. Like, was that something similar for you, or was it something else?
I'd say like the first serious short story that I wrote was back in grade 12.
Really?
And it was an assignment given. Yeah, it was. I'd written like a few little random things before that, but nothing real serious or nothing like that.
Okay.
And then she gave us that assignment. That's kind of what got me going, was that one story that I wrote then.
But like everything before like high school, you hadn't really been doing a lot of like short story writing or like writing in general?
No.
Or really?
No, not at all, to be honest.
So you read mostly, or like?
Yeah, extensively. After the Great Illustrated Classics, it went to like historical fiction and comedies and stuff like that. Janet Ivanovich.
Cool.
So that was kind of.
Yeah, so like you really never considered doing any serious, like any kind of serious writing up until then? Like not even, like were you doing like scribbles or?
I think I had written a couple little random things here and there, but yeah, it was never nothing much. It wasn't something I was really pursuing until right around grade 12.
Okay, so I guess we'll really talk about that first assignment. So what was that like? Like what were you assigned to do?
So it was literally just write a short story, and we'll go down the emotional pathway here. And my parents were like in the middle of splitting up then.
Oh, okay.
So it was like, oh yeah, the big angsty moment. So yeah, I wrote a story just randomly about that kind of stuff, and it was cathartic, so I kept at it from there.
Yeah, like writing as a release. Like a lot of people I know have kind of been doing that with, like not even if they wanted to become writers, like it was, through like poetry, maybe, through essays or something. And yeah, definitely there was a lot of catharsis there. Like, I guess personally for me, like I would kind of write like that too. It really depends though. Like I think for longer narratives, I typically wouldn't really write as a means of like, getting anything really out there. Yeah. That's interesting though. Like, Gabe, what about you? Did you ever write as a means to like vent, basically?
I don't know if I ever wrote as a means to vent about the stresses of my life, but I definitely wrote for, like, I guess you could say, escapist purposes. I think that was something we talked about in my first episode, where uh it was sort of there was sort of like a self fan fiction thing going on. I think that's something that a lot of early stages writers, where it's just you write sort of self insert fiction, and a lot
Yeah.
of like what if scenarios that involve either yourself or like proto yous that are that are not you in name only, essentially, and in like these wacky fantastical fictional scenarios. So I don't know if I wrote to vent, but I definitely got into it as a means of like escapism.
Yeah. Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, like I said, I'd written a lot of like, I'd written a lot, but so few of it was mainly for like cathartic reasons. I think largely because I think the last few times I did that, and I don't know if you guys can agree or not, but I think when it comes to like self-insert stories or stories that have any kind of catharsis put into it, like, yeah, it's a good way of getting things out there, but ultimately when I try to look back on it, everything that I had been putting out there, I guess it just kind of haunts me a little bit. And I think, like, for example, like, I write I write poetry on my Instagram, and sometimes that is meant to, sometimes it's meant to vent when I'm feeling frustrated about a single person or multiple people or whatever, like, and that's so few and far between though, because most of the time I'm generally like just sitting in my bed, and then suddenly like a few sentences pop into my head, and then it's like, oh, okay, I could probably write this down. But like, yeah, anyway, that was a wild tangent we went on. Yeah. So yeah, Mark, you had mainly started in grade 12 writing. Like, if I can ask, like, was there like a specific kind of moment when you were first starting to write that you figured, oh, I actually really enjoyed this? Like, I think if I develop it more, I could probably make it into something. And like you said that, yeah, like we had just gone on a thing of like, doing it for cathartic reasons, but like, was there anything more to it?
I think with that first story, it was pretty much just the cathartic. Like, I felt so much better afterwards. Like, I felt like I could kind of get a handle on what was going on. It was kind of, you felt like you could almost have a little bit of control over it, because you've now turned it into a fictional narrative that you've created and that you control. And so I think that was really helpful there. And then from there, I wrote, this is weird. I went from short story to a novel, and I wrote an entire novel.
It's quite the jump. I respect that.
Yeah, right. And it was fully the escapist thing. The novel was entirely like this random fantasy of mine of like just packing it up, moving away, and just having some huge adventure. I mean, the novel is garbage, but
Here, tell us about it. So, you've given a really quick synopsis, but like, tell us like break it down for us. So, like, why? I guess first of all, why suddenly make the jump from like a short story to a novel? Like, did you have just so many ideas after that first short story that you wanted to start writing down, or?
Yeah, I think the reason it became a novel was just because I was able to weave a narrative that long and that big. Like, the idea was big enough that I was actually able to turn it into that. So it was kind of just, I don't think I intended it to be a novel when I started it. It just ended up morphing into one kind of thing.
What's the name of it?
It was literally just called Jacob, named after the main character.
Nice. What's the story? You say that he goes on a big adventure, but like...
Yeah, so he ups and leaves Calgary with this girl that he'd been into or whatever, and moves to Ireland, where he gets caught up in a resurgence of the IRA, the Ireland Republican Army, I think it was, something like that.
Ooh.
It's like, yeah, like, it was built on a complete misunderstanding of that situation. Like, they were a full-on like terrorist group apparently, but
Yeah.
my 18-year-old self was like, "Oh, I can turn this into a war story," and that, yeah, it was Northern Ireland rebelling against the UK.
Yeah.
Yeah, which makes about as much sense as Canada rebelling against the UK. It's just, there's no reason for it.
Yeah, like, that's so interesting. I definitely want to talk a lot more about that. So, I guess starting with that, like, why did you kind of start going into that narrative? Like, I can see because you had briefly talked about historical fiction and how much you had been reading that. Like, did you read a lot about the Troubles? I think that's that's what it was called. So did you read a lot about the Troubles and the IRA bombings and everything that surrounded that time period?
Actually, no, not at all. The historical fiction I was reading was by Bernard Cromwell and was almost strictly Napoleonic era.
Mm.
I don't know how I got onto the IRA thing. I remember I was visiting Newfoundland with my family, and this really, really thick fog rolled in one day while we were driving. And it was just like, as I was driving, I was thinking, wow, this fog would be so threatening in war because, like, so many soldiers could be hiding in that and just appear randomly. You'd never even see them coming. And so that was where the whole thing came from. I just wanted to come up with this concept of these fog-walking soldiers.
That's definitely a pretty powerful scene.
Yeah, and there ended up only being one scene involving that in the whole book, but it was the one scene of the whole book that I actually enjoyed. So,
how long did that end up like finishing? Like how long? Like you say it's a novel, but like that could well have been maybe what 80,000 words, 100,000 words. Like how? Like if you can remember, how long did that? Like how long did it end up being?
I remember back in those days, Microsoft Word had like the reading layout where you could actually put it into the form of a novel.
Yeah.
And it clocked in at about 500 pages.
My God, that's impressive.
Yeah.
Certainly takes a lot of...
It was good.
Well, I mean, like, it certainly takes a lot of dedication, especially right out of high school, to, like, put yourself through, I guess, the patience of writing a novel. And I spoke about this in the first episode, but it really does take a lot of patience in general to write a project that big.
Definitely.
Like, regardless of how good or bad it is, like, you can... I think I've broken it down in the first episode, but basically, when it comes to shorter stories or, like, postcard stories or anything kind of, like, generally within, like, the thousands range, so not, like, in the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands yet, like, it really does take a lot of talent to kind of keep everyone invested and tell your story without suddenly it being expansive. And suddenly when it's going into novel territory, like obviously you still need to have a lot of talent there, but I think the biggest thing when it comes to writing a novel is definitely patience. Like you really have to trust the process as it goes along. Like, you know, it could be 500 pages, it could be 300, but like ultimately if you reach like the hundreds at that point, like that's something to commend about, even if it was as bad as you say, but we don't have any access to it, so we wouldn't know.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so
it was a good experience, right?
Yeah. Actually, that brings up a good point. Why are you saying that it was so bad then?
It's when I look back on it, I feel that the general concept of it was so deeply flawed as for it to not work. Like, it was a story that I wanted to have a certain amount of realism to it.
Mm-hmm.
And it just doesn't have that realism. Like, there would be no reason for this rebellion to happen. It's a completely absurd concept that if I was going for more of a dystopian future or a sci-fi, then I could make that work. But this was supposed to be grounded at that time in realism. So it was just too flawed to actually function properly as a story.
Have you tried taking it anywhere? Like, have you tried...
I've considered it.
Like, through publishing or, like, through editing or what?
Actually, I think I did submit it for publishing after I had written it. I was trying to find a literary agent, but I never did hear back.
Yeah.
I still have it. I sent it through the registered mail, to kind of have that like fake copyright going on kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I still have the sealed registered mail somewhere in the house.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, it could always be a good piece of memento, right?
That's exactly it. And I did learn a lot of lessons through writing it, so.
Yeah. And I guess, like, the reason why I asked that question in the first place was because, in my experience, at least, and when it came time that my first draft of my current project was finished, I realized that there were a lot of issues with it going into, I guess, the next phase of it. So I wanted to get it professionally edited. And like I've said in previous episodes, I contacted a freelance editor named Eli to help out with it, just to see, like, because at the time I didn't really have friends that kind of knew how to write, essentially. And that's no thing, and that's not a knock on them, but just like they could tell me certainly like what the big moments were, and they'd be supportive of me. But when it came to like the real technical things that help make a story, or that help piece the story together, so like grammar, syntax, pacing in general, different use of punctuation, like I didn't really have anyone at the time, so I needed to go to an editor. And like the input that I got from that was super beneficial, because when it came, and this was before like I even went into creative writing class in university, so I guess that was my first real kind of step into taking it a bit more professionally. Yeah. Gabe, how about you? What did you do with any of your projects after they were completed? Like, did you try taking them anywhere? Did you try like seeking an editor, or what?
It's interesting. The classes that I've been taking in university have been the first time that I have ever shared like pieces of my creative fiction. I never sought. I remember in the last episode I talked about a book that I wrote in high school, and I never sought out an editor for that. I never really showed it to anyone, and I had a lot of friends who like were asking me if they could read it, because I told them I was working on it, and I was like, no, I don't want to show it yet.
Yeah, it's always that thing where it's like, oh yeah, I'm working on a book. Can I see it?
No, I don't know if I want to show it.
Yeah, just like trust me, I know what I'm doing, kinda.
Well, I don't know if it was if it was like if I was trying to like I know what I'm doing. I was like I think what it was for the longest time was that it was like a thing where I was so dead. I think one of the things that happened a lot in my life, especially growing up, was there's a lot of like discouragement from like I think I tried to get into sports when I was younger, and I wasn't very good at that, and I got a lot of like, you suck at this. And I was like, all right, well, guess I won't do this, and that just kept repeating itself. And I guess it put me in like a box, like where I was like, we're doing this, but I'm not gonna show it to anyone. Like I'm gonna keep this as long as I can, because I don't want to have like that feeling where I put it out into the world, and then get that that surge of discouragement, and then I'm just like, well, I'm never gonna do this again, dropping this permanently, gonna move on to some other vice. And so I think it wasn't until the creative writing courses in university, when I started showing my writing to other people. And I think the reason for that was an environment where I was like, oh well, they're all also writers. They know how it is. They know how to talk about other people's writing, because they know how they would want their writing talked about.
Yeah. And
I think having that sort of environment has made it a lot easier for me to, because I will like, I'm now at a point where I will like just send someone, like if I worked on a short story, I'll just send it to one of my friends and be like, hey man, you want to read this? And they'll be like, yeah, sure, dude. And then that's that's like the most of the interaction, and there's sort of something sobering about that, because then it's like, oh, I could have been doing this the whole time. What the fuck is wrong with me?
Yeah, there's definitely something like, from a perspective that understands writing in general, like for us at least, like it's so rewarding to have someone who gets it. And I talked about that like last episode too, but like we as friends know how this works, right? Like obviously we were taught under the same teacher, but it's outside of that. Like it's really outside of everything that Michelin has taught us that suddenly we have to start applying into our own work. And I think before we go down that road, I want to quickly touch base with Mark again about his first book, and that is, I guess, just like, what were some of the lessons that you had learned from that first project?
I think one of the biggest ones that always jumps to mind is, I know it gets said a lot, but it's the write what you know kind of thing. I was trying to place a story in Northern Ireland, a place I have never been. And it's like, you can look at photos of the streets of Dublin, but that's only going to show you so much, right? And I found it impossible to really properly describe a setting when you haven't been there. You haven't got the sounds of it and the smells of it and what it looks like at 9 o'clock versus 12 in the afternoon, right? So.
Oh yeah. And
then like the other really big one was character sketches. It's like 500 pages, and I think I was doing a read through, and I was on like page 300 when I like noticed a character's hair color had changed.
Yeah. Oh.
And it was just like, oh man, I have to sift through here and find 300 pages of references to the wrong hair color and fix it.
Oh, I feel that.
It was.
Yeah.
It's just terribly discouraging.
Bless Control F. Just.
Yeah, right. Word find.
Yeah.
That's why I've sort of taken the philosophy of like, I will write down all the character description that I want to when a character is introduced, and then never again, just so I don't fuck it up.
Yeah. It certainly does help to draw a little bit. Like, you don't have to be an incredible like artist or anything, but it helps to kind of some kind of consistency when it comes to your characters, like especially if you're doing like long form basic novel length stories. Like, you're bound to be so worked up in the climax of the scene that you kind of forget like how you introduced the character in the first place. Like, I definitely feel that. And I don't think I was ever really guilty of like when it came to my character's like facial appearance, but like definitely when I first wrote Xeno, which is my current project, as a sci-fi story rather than a YA fantasy, I think at one point the character was wearing one thing, and I think it was like it was supposed to be like a black leather jacket, black jeans, and white t-shirt. And for some reason, not even a few pages later, I think the look had completely changed. Like, it wasn't even a leather jacket at that point anymore. I think it was like a racer jacket. Like, it wasn't even leather either. It was like some kind of like felt leather, like felt racer jacket, like a button-up shirt, and then for some reason like a skirt. And I'm like, what? When did this happen? Like, it would have, like, it was supposed to be a completely consistent outfit too, like the leather jacket, the shirt, and the jeans. Like, that was supposed to be the outfit through most of the story. And I don't know how the hell it came to that. Like, there was no like merit kind of setting that up, and I'm like, what did I do? Yeah.
And it happens in a heartbeat. You don't even realize you've done it until it's too late.
Yeah. Gabe, has that ever happened to you? Where you kind of just like lost track of a character's appearance?
That's happened a couple times. Character's appearance, or like certain elements of their background. There was this one character in a story that I've been working on for a while now. I haven't really written it, but I've sort of been working on the outlines and stuff. And one of the characters in that is called Jubilee, and Jubilee is a black woman who lives in, she doesn't matter where she lives, she's a black woman. And in the second book outline, her parents are introduced, and I remember I was working on, like, because I can't draw, so what I usually do is I will go on IMDb and make like a little list, I guess, of like who I would have as these characters. And I had as their parents Keanu Reeves and Winona Ryder, notably not black actors. But I just completely blanked on that, and that ended up becoming a plot point later on, because I was like, I don't want to trade either of these traits, but so I think that's something to take from that, is that like if you fuck up, that might be an indicator of like some subconscious desire for that character, so, or like that storyline. So like I think an easy like the easiest fix could be like another story I'm working on. There's a character named Jessie. She has blonde hair at the start of the book, and then at the end I have like little sketches of her with pink hair. And I was like, oh shit, wait, that doesn't work. I'll throw in a scene where she dyes her hair, and it's like I don't have to scramble. I just have like this little edit, this little scene to sort of wrap it all up in a nice little bow.
Yeah, it's hard to like. It can be honestly hard sometimes to do damage control to your own mistakes. Sometimes, especially when you've been working on your project for so long.
It can, but I think it's a problem solving opportunity, and it sort of gives you like a new lens. It might give you a new lens on where you want that story to go if you have to like rearrange elements and prioritize what character traits you want to have over the other character traits if you think a certain element doesn't work.
Yeah, I agree.
And that can be good for your writings. You can, if you have that reprioritization, your writing might be a little more cohesive from that.
Well, certainly, like, you know, I'm pretty sure you guys would agree with me here, but like writing definitely is a learning experience through and through.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like you
Absolutely.
You kind of go into every project with one certain set of skills, but then certainly you kind of learn everything, or not everything, but like you learn things definitely along the way. Like you know, for like, I guess as an example, you kind of learn that I can't really draw out my characters, but then you have, you know, ways to still kind of visualize it anyway. So like you could do what Gabe did and go on IMDb, see the most compatible actors. There are people who go on Pinterest and pin like little and pin images that work best for their character. And I guess even just like having like a document full of like their features in general, like and it's like thorough documents. And I know that from experience because I do that. Like
another way I super recommend, because it's helped me a lot with my writing, is any the Sims games. Just get a Sim game and go into that character creator, because if you have trouble drawing, a lot of video game character creators I found can be good as like a substitute for that, because you don't really have to draw, and you can get a lot of like your ideas for how a character should look through like the options, depending on the game. Of course, there might be like some games don't have the options available for you, but The Sims is a pretty safe bet, I think, for most like design choices.
Yeah. Mark, how would you visualize your characters, if I may ask? Like, did you like sketch them? Did you use like what Gabe did and found actors and models as references, or like how did you visualize your characters?
Honestly, these days I kind of just have a bit of a mental image going on, and I go into PowerPoint and just list off key features. I'll list off like, you know, your basic physical appearance kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then I'll have another slide where I have like personality and kind of like their attitude and things like that. And then after Micheline's class, now I have another slide that's entirely dedicated to their spine kind of thing. So it's really just
that's
just
pretty good.
Huge page after page kind of thing.
Yeah, like do you just kind of like compile every like multiple characters into a single PowerPoint, or do you have like one character or one PowerPoint per character or something like that?
I'm trying to do just one PowerPoint file for each character, because it started to get really, really big, and I didn't want to have to navigate through like 20 different slides to get to the next character. So I just have different files.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think I certainly have met people who like have typed out their character personality traits, but I feel like PowerPoint would be a pretty good way of organizing things too. Just because then
it seems to work decent.
Yeah, just so then you can have like a lot more organized kind of information, but I mean that depends on everyone, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing is like I'm working at like the till at Home Depot or something, and there's like someone who comes through the till, and you just look at them and you're like, oh hey, I don't know what your name is, but I feel like you're actually this character that I'm just writing about.
Have you ever written a character based off someone you met at Home Depot? Because that's what I'm thinking.
I legitimately did. Like not the personality, but like the look of this one guy as he came through my till. I was just like, oh, I think that's what I want this Xander guy to look like.
Okay, well, what did the guy look like? Oh my fucking god. No! Discord! No! Why do you have to betray me? I'm gonna kill myself.
And he's back. God damn.
I'm so sad. Why? You know what? This is exactly what editing is for. We'll be fine. Just god damn it.
So brutal.
It's been Tekken. I had been so content for so long, and I let my guard down, and this is what Discord fucking does to me. God damn it. Okay. So
There was like a few times where I heard it like start to do it, and I was like, oh no.
wait, you guys could hear me starting to disconnect?
Oh, I didn't hear that.
No, see on mine I kind of hear this weird like, you know the sound when they're going into the Matrix? It sounds like that.
Oh.
Oh my goodness. Alright,
Yeah,
well,
it's really weird.
that just added on an extra 3 minutes. Sweet. That's a good 3 minutes I'm gonna start cutting, or maybe as a blooper. I don't fucking know. I am sad. But anyway, let's soldier on. So,
Yes.
welcome back everyone. If it suddenly cut out or something, if I decide to do something with that, I had just experienced issues with Discord. Thanks. So we'll backtrack a little bit, and we were talking about how Mark had met someone at his till at Home Depot, and how he kind of based one of his character's appearance after it. So do you want to catch us up on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I really creeped the guy out actually.
Okay, wait. How did you go about asking this guy? You were like, oh shit.
Oh, I didn't
Just
talk to him about it at all. I was just kind of like fixing his features into my mind's eye.
Mm.
It's like, okay, we got like the peppery, spiked up hair going on. He's wearing this really snappy suit. Like,
You were staying for like a little too long.
He's like
I
a
think so, yeah.
fancy Guy Fieri.
Exactly.
Yeah, you could have seriously been like, you could have seriously met Guy Fieri, and you had just been so fixated on his appearance that like you forgot that it was Guy fucking Fieri.
You may or may not have unintentionally written a character based on Guy Fieri. How does this make you feel?
I'm worried that there might be copyright issues involved with it now.
Figieri, there. From Salt.
I'm sure Guy Fieri wouldn't see. He seems like a swell man.
Yeah.
He seems like a nice guy.
There was like, okay, complete off thing, but like there was a whole thing on Instagram where it was just like spreading a whole lot of love for Guy Fieri, and I read through most of it, and it's so sweet. Like, I hope this is true, because that just makes him a king. Anyway, I guess like there was that one instance. Like, has that kind of happened again? Like not even necessarily at Home Depot. Like, did you just kind of see someone on the street and then saw their appearance and they were like, wow, I could see that in my book. Or I could see that in my work.
Every now and again. Or like, I'll have a general idea of what I want a character to look like, and then I'll encounter someone in real life and be like, oh, hey, that's kind of what I'm going for. And it, like, I know it sounds really weird, but it kind of helps me lock in on what I want the character to look like.
Yeah.
It just helps describe it to a reader that much better.
Is there a notable example of that?
The guy at Home Depot is probably the biggest one. I got a big smile out of him. I think I could have got a phone number if I tried.
Yeah, you were just like, yo, so, brother, you're gonna be in my story. Is that cool with you?
Yeah, no, we definitely didn't talk about it. I just went through the Home Depot script and was just creeping him out, I think.
Yeah, just staring at him a little bit too long. Just so you don't forget the detail. Alright, so...
he'll live forever in fiction.
Yeah. Alright, so... Moving along, I guess before we get into really our big conversation topic, I wanted to ask one quick thing, and that is your support system. And I had talked about that with Alex last episode, and we had been talking about, like, you know, just who are the people that kind of helped you, you know, who are the kind of people who were supporting you as you were doing, like, all your reading, all your writing, like, if you want to guide us through that.
Yeah, especially with, like, the novel, probably the biggest one was my girlfriend Carmen. We've been together for 12 years now. So she's been...
Congratulations.
Kind of like... Thank you, kindly. Yeah, she's been the biggest one since I started writing. She's always the first one to get the first draft, and she's always got good thoughts. And then, like...
Does she write too?
Edmonton. So there's times we'll be driving up there, and we'll literally spend that full 6-hour drive just hashing out what this story's going to look like, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's my biggest sounding board for sure.
Has that been with, like, has that been with, like, future stories after that novel? Like,
yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you were in the class when I read The Thief, the Crier, and those damn Dark Ages, but the original version of that story looks nothing like what the finished product looked like. And it was from driving around with Carmen and trying to talk out what ideas weren't working, what bits of satire I wanted to throw in, and how to make them work, kind of thing. Like, she's always been the big one to help me get ideas out.
That's great. It's good to have it's really good to have someone, like, you know, it's good to have a support system that, you know, supports you and everything, but to have someone really engage with your work, like, even if they don't write as much, like, I have friends who, like, support me with my writing, and they don't know that much about, you know, storytelling like how you and I do, but, you know, I can trust that they're there for me, and that they're, you know, supporting me through, you know, my struggles, my, you know, my writer's block, everything that kind of annoys me personally. They don't understand it, but, you know, an annoyance is an annoyance, so they're there to help pick me up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So.
And then, I suppose the other big one is the rest of my family, especially my older sister Andrea. She's been through some creative writing classes, and she's currently a librarian. Ooh. So I definitely, I send the work to her for a lot of the editing work. A lot of my sisters are actually really good when it comes to grammar and syntax, so.
Oh, it's a family thing too. I like that. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to pay. Like, you don't have to pay for the editing, so, like,
it's definitely a bonus.
Oh yeah, unless they do charge you, but, you know, I'm not gonna ask. But yeah, guess that's it for part 1. Guess rolling into part 2 now, where, you know, I'll obviously you know, we'll let Gabe talk a lot more than he already does. No offense. It's good. It's good. I love it. I love it when you speak a lot. It's great. So, I had briefly done this as part of the briefer. Wow. Briefly as part of the briefer. My God, I am on some shit tonight. So I talked about this with you guys before we started recording, on how I wanted to talk to you guys about writing to music, and I felt like this was something that, you know, the three of us could really start to get into. But I guess before we kind of get into that, like, you know, do you guys write to a lot of music in general? Like, when you're writing scenes or when you're designing characters, like, do you guys listen to music when you're doing it?
Oh, absolutely. I think I need it.
Yeah?
To a certain degree. Yeah, I think... Well, it depends on the scene. I think if I'm writing a more casual scene, I don't necessarily need music, but if I'm writing a scene that has a certain mood, I definitely I definitely need like music to sort of put me in that mood. I think I've talked about this with you guys like outside of the podcast, so I'll say it on record here what my feelings on this are. I think when you write while you're writing to music, there's sort of like a subconscious influence that the music can have
Yeah.
on the tone of like that specific scene that you're writing. And it might not even be easy to notice for you, but from what I've seen, it has an impact on how other people will read it. I mean, and it can help you, and it can help you a lot as a writer to write to music. Like I think if you're listening to, say, we did a project a while back, not a while back, a couple weeks ago or a couple days ago. I don't remember. Time is a construct. As a group where we basically sent each other songs.
Yeah, I wanted to get into that actually.
Yeah, well, it was you, me, Maeve, and Jessica. We sent each other songs, and we were writing a postcard story to each other's music.
Yeah.
And throughout the whole time that I was writing mine, I had Maeve's song like on loop because I was like, I don't want to lose this mood. I don't want to write to nothing because if I want the mood of this song to be in my head throughout this entire writing process because I want that to influence. I want that to influence as strongly as possible, like how I'm going to write the scene, how I'm going to write the mood of the scene, and how I'm going to foresee things that I want in the future of the story and like in the moment of the story. Like, do I want this thing to happen or do I want this thing to happen? And certain plot beats that I may want to happen can be dictated by the mood that I'm in, and the mood that I'm in can be dictated by the music that I'm listening to. So if I'm listening to the right music, then that influences my mood the right way, and then that will sort of course correct me onto a more on a plot beat that is more befitting of the mood that I'm going for.
Yeah.
As opposed to something that I might think is a good idea in the moment because I'm not thinking, and then like in reading it back, it will sort of be a total vibe killer and will sort of break the tension and will go against the tone that I've established. Like that postcard story, I wrote it on a loop to that song because anytime that I had it off for a second, I was totally lost on where I should take the story. So I just sort of had the music on and in an unthinking way, just sort of wrote mindlessly. And that's sort of how I have approached a lot of my writing whenever I listen to music, just writing mindlessly, letting whatever impulsive thoughts come to me guide the story, and letting the music guide those impulses.
Yeah. Mark, how about you? How have you kind of... Like, do you agree with what Gabe's been saying?
Yeah, for me, it's a little different. I don't always write with music going in the background. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. A lot of times, I find it can pull me out of the writing, because I'll be sitting there and I'll be like, oh, you like, listen to Danny Carey just burning down that drum kit. Like, So, like, it has the capability to completely pull me out of the moment.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it really depends on my mood at the time, or if I'm writing by myself or with other people in the house kind of thing. It's a little random.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, like, the thing that I've been trying to figure out recently is to add music into the story in a way, like trying to add, like, I love when you're reading a book and you come across like lyrics for a tune or something, but then my mind always wants to hear that song. So like as I'm writing, I'm also trying to figure out how to add music into the story, and that's kind of where the interplay of writing and music is coming in for me these days.
Yeah. I think for me, like, I had been writing to music for so long that I think it's basically part of my writing process. And, you know, we all have our own ways of writing, and that's why it's our own individual process. But, like, like I remember, I think back when I was a kid, I had been listening to like film scores and like film scores, occasionally a video game score, but that's when video games were still not super, I guess, like Hollywood-esque. Like they didn't really pump in like big names to produce their soundtracks yet, so a lot of it was mainly film scores, sometimes metal music, sometimes rock music, sometimes pop, like whole different kind of genres. But like so much of my creativity sometimes comes from, just the overall tone and the feeling that I get from listening to music. And, it's kind of what Gabe said. And I think as my writing style kind of got better in a way, like as I really started to find how I tell my stories, I listened to a lot of instrumentals. And if you guys kind of know from really early on when this Discord was created that, I would sometimes recommend instrumentals. And I think that's just because, for me at least, instrumentals don't have any lyrics to them. So it gives me my own creative freedom to kind of tell how this is playing towards the scene. And I know that can be a little bit weird, but basically when there's a lyric filled song, it feels like there's already a message there for me, and sometimes it doesn't really kind of align with what I'm trying to write, especially if I'm trying to write like, a dramatic scene or like, maybe just some banter between friends. Like if I'm writing to a song that has lyrics to it, it kind of means that it's like I get the vibe of it, but it just doesn't really connect overall with what I'm trying to write. So with instrumentals, that's what makes it, I guess, more beneficial for me. Like I can still I found a way to kind of do a jump between the two, but I think largely, it's instrumentals that I write to. And so I guess moving along, Gabe kind of touched on this earlier. Like, how is it that writing to music makes you feel? Like, how is it so special to you? What is it in the tone, and what is it in the song itself sometimes? Or what is it in, like, a song or an album or, like, an artist specifically? Like, when it works, like, how is it connecting, and how is that helping you write better, and how is that helping you write more?
I guess it can really depend on, like, it varies from scene to scene for what I'm going for. For example, one of the you were talking about instrumentals. One of my favorite instrumental artists is Colin Stetson, and I listen to him a lot whenever I'm working on a horror project. And I think what I like about his music a lot in regards to writing to it is, again, that sort of mood infusion. His music is very creepy and sort of ethereal. And I think I like listening to it when I write horror, because it taps into something like some of the darker corners of my mind, and I'm like, okay, this is creepy. Where is my mind going when I think of creepy, when I have creepy feelings creeping over me, when or Michael Levi. Have you guys ever listened to Michael Levi's music?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, her music is wonderful, and it's very creepy. It's very interesting, and that's another thing you can have if you want to write something more like very creepy or horror-y or sort of cosmic even. A lot of her music, especially the soundtrack that she did for Under the Skin, which is a wonderful movie. Just gonna tangent real quick. That's a great idea. Everyone should watch it. But I don't know. I think what I like about writing to music is just I like listening to music, and I like writing, so they just sort of go together very well. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm gonna pass this over to Mark while I think of my answer more.
Yeah, I mean, I'm along the same vein, like, where I'll definitely, if I'm listening to music, I will try to pair it up with the feel of the scene. Or, like, I'll be driving and I'll listen to a certain song that'll actually give me an idea for a story, and I'll listen to it as I'm writing the story. But, like, yeah, it's definitely it's the emotional connection while you're writing and listening to a certain song. Like, I'm not going to write a fight scene while listening to the Wiggles.
That'd be one hell of a fight scene. I mean, like...
Yeah, I might have to try that now.
Everyone's in flat colored t-shirts. A couple people are a little bit too old to be in that scene in the first place, but like, you know what? It'll work.
Oh yeah, man, this sounded like a fantastic idea.
Yeah, I'm 100%. Someone needs to reboot children's shows as action heroes. That'd be amazing.
Oh, I totally want to see Tommy from the Rugrats as a superhero.
Yeah, Tommy from the Rugrats facing off against fucking Steve from Blue's Clues. Yes, I want that. So, someone who's listening, make that right now.
Yeah, there's your writing challenge for that.
Yeah, it'll take you a long time, but you know what? Someone has to. That's a golden idea. But yeah, so I think for me, like, why I wanted to, I think, touch on this one question specifically was because for me, at least, writing to music really does, I guess, evoke a lot. And it certainly kind of helps set the scene or tell a character's emotions rather than just kind of thinking right off the fly. Like, there's something kind of pre-built about a song already that kind of sparks an idea into your head. And I'll give an example. So, like, when I am trying to enter a new location, I'll typically listen to something that, like, depending on the state of the city, I'll listen to the corresponding song, and that'll help me pop up, like, okay, so with every beat of the song, here's something new, right? So if it's a heavy metal song, it's kind of like in a rougher area, so that means that there's maybe a gunfight, like, way far in the east, and, you know, maybe there's just trouble looming around every corner or something. If it's something more ethereal, more world building like it's, you know, kind of entering a bigger city, you know, there's so much life, so much color, and I don't think, for me at least, that I could have come up with that on my own. Sometimes I do need a little bit of help, and music certainly does do that for me, right? Like, I could, like, you know, I don't know about you guys, but I could watch a movie, or I could, you know, look at a TV show, a video game, or whatever, and look at the immaculate kind of world building that they've done, and I don't think I can base any of my stuff around that just by looking at it. I think I really have to think on it, and music is kind of like that hand that pushes me towards my ideas. If that makes any sense.
No, yeah, that makes sense, I'd say.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would say that... Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say that, I mean, listening to music is a lot like reading a book, a lot like writing a book. It's an emotional connection, right? Like, that's the ultimate goal of it, is to connect on that level with it.
Yeah. It's definitely, like, when you say emotional connection, yeah, it's definitely an emotional connection, because I sometimes cry when I listen to a new song that I really, really get into.
Oh, I feel ya.
Yeah, like, and I don't know why, but this is... So I think the biggest example is with the League of Legends trailers. Whenever they whenever they release a new, you know, season trailer where they're promoting the new season of the game, like, they usually have this big, epic cinematic trailer that goes with it. And it's, first of all, it's like, God damn it, where the hell is my League of Legends movie? It's like I'm sitting here watching this trailer, crying to the music because it's just so good, and I'm like, why? I would give Riot all of my money to have a League of Legends movie, even just a single character. Anyway, like, I think when it comes to, like, big epic cinematic songs like that, it overwhelms me with so much emotion, because I'm kind of picturing, you know, my own characters in the scene, and, you know, like, how, like, certain big emotional events in my own story when I'm listening to a new song. And I think when it fits so well, like, I will physically cry just showing my expression for it, because, like, I don't know, like there's something, I think it's just because I've maybe been listening to music or writing to music for so long that I guess that's just something that comes with it now. Like whenever I'm adding new songs on Spotify or to my big instrumental music playlist, and I'll listen to it and I start crying, I'm like, okay, yeah, this has to be a song that I can use at some point. I don't know where and I don't know how, but I would definitely want to write to this out at one point. But do we have anyone that we write to specifically? Like, do we have any favorite composers, musicians?
I'd say when I'm listening to music while writing, it is most frequently Tool.
Yeah, you've mentioned that before. How come?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, is there a specific reason why? Because I'm not too familiar with Tool's music.
I'm honestly not 100% sure. I think it's because what I'm writing now is like that dystopian future, like, you know, and a lot of Tool's music is about like the big fractures and the big problems in society, and it's a lot of like really technical, out there, strange music. And I think it just, kind of connects me with that dystopian world that I'm trying to create in the future kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I can definitely see that. Like with dystopia, there's certainly its own unique kind of flavor, and I think with what I do know about Tool's music, I feel like, yeah, that's definitely a good matching for the story. Gabe, how about you?
Yeah, it's work.
Yeah.
Well, I've already mentioned Colin Stetson and Michael Levi for horror, but if I'm working on something that's more like fantasy or science fiction, I like to listen to I don't know if I have any specific composers, but I do just love like looking up lo-fi 24/7 beats to steady playlists. There's this band called The Pillows. I love listening to their music. They're Japanese, so I don't understand a word they're saying, but they have really chill music. And I think if I'm trying to write a more chill or calm or like warm, I guess, a warm scene, I usually write to their music. They have sort of, it's weird. I didn't grow up with their music or anything, but their music has a very nostalgic quality to it. So whenever I write to them, there's sort of this warm nostalgia that creeps over me. And if I'm writing something that's more of an action scene or something, I might write to Hiroyuki Sawano's music, and he did the Attack on Titan soundtrack, so that kind of thing for itself is just very loud, punchy action music.
Yeah. I think for me, when I'm writing to like specific people, it really does change my scene dramatically. And I think case in point, when I'm writing an emotional scene, I think without fail, I've almost always listened to a song featuring Julie Elvin. And I don't know if you guys know who that is, but she is a vocalist, and she has appeared in the soundtracks for Horizon Zero Dawn. She's done numerous trailer songs, and like,
is she the one who does like the vocalizations in the Horizon music?
Yeah. Like, I love her.
How do I spell her name?
Julie Elvin, I love you so much. Yeah, like, I think it's something with just how the song is structured and just her voice in general that really helps power so much emotions into, like, for myself at least, and that's what helps translate that into emotional scenes really well. When it comes to, I think overall, for anything really, like, there is this composer named Ivan Torrent, and I hope I'm pronouncing his last name properly, I hope I'm pronouncing his name in general properly because it's Spanish, but he is a composer that I quite literally based an entire thesis paper on because his music is just so good. Like, there is so many different styles of music that he does, and I think maybe a fourth of my playlist, I think a fourth of one of my playlists is just his music. Because I'm so, I'm just so entrenched with his work and how well he does it. And, like, even though I listen to a lot of instrumentals, that doesn't mean that, you know, I don't listen to lyrical stuff too. Like, if I'm it really depends though, because if I'm writing to like an emotional scene, or if I'm writing to, I guess, more like a dramatic scene in general, like Hosier brings up a lot of emotions because I love that man. I really love that man. And like Hosier, Ed Sheeran, kind of like slower, kind of vibey music. And then if I'm writing to more action-packed scenes, so like, you know, fight scene, or like, you know, maybe building up to a climax or whatever, like I'll listen to, I guess technically screamo is what it's called, but like pop punk, you know, punk rock, deathcore, metalcore, stuff like that. Like Bring Me the Horizon, Asking Alexandria, like like a lot of their older music and some songs currently, they really do help visualize a lot of this intensity that I want to capture in a fight scene. I think it's something about like, there's something like, I think, special about writing to rock music in general that really helps with like action scenes. Like would you guys agree?
Oh yeah. Big
Yeah,
time.
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, with Mark, with you, it's a given because you're listening to Tool, but like, like, I think what I'm trying to get at is like listening to rock music definitely. Like, I feel like if you're trying to write an action scene, you can certainly write a really oh my god, Discord crashed again. Ah, no. How dare you? This is such chaos.
It's brutal.
Oh my god. Okay, look.
Oh dear.
Yeah, so anyway, welcome back, friends. Just it has been a roller coaster of a night, not gonna lie. It's like literally like, this is, now I want to talk about this. Why the fuck are we having tech issues? Like with the last two episodes that we did, seriously, like with the last
Everything
two
went
episodes
so
that we did.
fine.
Yeah.
Everything went.
Yeah.
It went perfect, and I'm not. And earlier, Mark was like, "Oh, it's just because of me," and I'm like, "No, it's not. Do not throw yourself under the bus like that." The hell. This is what.
I'm the only difference.
So this is what May 2020 is bringing us, motherfucker. First, in January it was the threat of World War III. In February, it was Australia's wildfires, basically. March, obviously, the coronavirus, COVID-19, shutting the entire world down, basically. April, aliens got announced, and no one's really talking about that. In May, we have killer bees, we have killer hornets, and tech issues. I hate it. I want to restart. Oh my god. Yeah, how have you... Okay, you know what? Let's talk about that real quick. How have you guys been handling 2020?
It pretty much sucks.
Like, you know, because this is mainly I guess like a writing podcast for now, it certainly has been something that's worthy of a lot of material. I think it was a tweet that I saw a while ago where it was like, wow, the amount of content that could come out of this entire scenario could be incredible.
Oh yeah. I mean, this is gonna fill the next century worth of novels, non-fictions, historical research.
Like you can
this event.
Yeah. Like you can imagine like other writers like us kind of sitting at home, not really doing much, and with that, there's so much time to write out their story now. Like, you have no excuse sometimes. Or for some people, you don't have an excuse anymore. Write your fucking story. But yeah, like, for me at least, like being in quarantine has, I guess for the better, helped my writing out a lot. Because now, I guess now that I'm not playing video games as regularly and I'm not, like, I guess reading as regularly, most of my attention is either going into... like so much of my attention lately has been going into the podcast, but largely so much of my overall attention has been going towards my book, and at least that's been a blessing. Like, I'm glad that I finally now have, you know, proper time to work on it and not have to worry about going to work or going to anything, or like, you know, no offense, like I don't even have to see friends for a while, so like I have all the time in the world to work on it.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Regular life just gets so chaotic, right? Like,
oh yeah. Like,
so there's some plus sides to this.
Yeah. Like for you guys, how is thing, like has quarantine kind of affected your writing in any way, or like have you just barely touched it?
I'm definitely writing a lot more than I used to.
Yeah. Mark, you said kind of a while ago that you hadn't really touched your laptop, I think, since the semester ended, like a few weeks ago, right?
Yeah, this thing is, I mean, the way it blew up Home Depot, we've been working so much, I haven't done much writing.
Yeah. But like, have you done any kind of projects on the side in general, or like even little scribbles on like paper or something?
Yeah, actually, I got a creative nonfiction piece out of this whole mess.
Ooh.
Yeah, my family wanted to support our local pizza joint, the one we've been going to literally my entire life.
Mm.
So we ordered pizza from them, and I went down to pick it up, and just had like, I don't know, this really weird moment with the guy when I walked in, and we just kind of like, we smile at each other, and just like, there's just this weird kind of tension in the air where it's like, you're both really happy to see the other one is still doing okay.
Yeah.
Like, and I just like, I asked him, I was like, you know, like, how's things? Are you guys, like, how's business, right? Like,
yeah.
I was really worried about them. And thankfully he's like, you know, we're going to make it through this, thankfully. Like, we'll be all right kind of deal. But he told me about how everyone else in that complex has shut down. And they're not working. And it's literally just coast to coast. It's still open there.
Wow.
And he was just like, yeah, it was just this surreal thing, especially as I was driving away and I realized, I'm like, wow, they're the only lights that are on. Like, it was a really weird kind of moment, so I just had to write about it.
Yeah. Have you taken that anywhere? Like, have you showed the owners of the place, like, your story?
No, actually, not yet. Probably should talk to them about it, actually.
Yeah, like, it's certainly a thing. Like, it certainly mean a lot, I guess, in general. You know, just kind of like, you know, obviously you're supporting something, but like, you feel for them so much that, you know, you put in the time to write about it and then show it off. Like, that's certainly, you know, I feel like that would be something pretty sweet.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, maybe they'll double the price on your pizza next time if it was a bad story. I don't know.
There's definitely that risk.
Yeah. But yeah, like, Gabe, like, you had been working on like a lot more on your writing for quarantine in between working. So like, you had shared your current work in progress, which is Skybusters. Did we talk much about that in the first episode?
We talked about that in my first episode.
Yeah, so for you guys listening, you obviously know, I guess at this point, like, what Skybusters is about. So like, how has, I guess, the extra free time when you're not working, like, how have you kind of been writing mid quarantine?
I know I just said I've been writing a lot more, and I still would say that I do write with more, like,
it's a good 20 word difference.
I think it's the difference between, like, when I write during the semester, I usually would write in very infrequent spurts, and I would sort of jam something out right before a due date.
Yeah.
And with quarantine, it's been more of like a daily thing. But with that, there's also the flip side of I am writing much less in. Does that make any sense? I'm writing much less with more. Like, I'm writing more, but I'm also writing much less each time that I sit down to write. Now that I'm, like, sort of, because I remember last week I made the very bold claim that I would have. Last week I sent you guys the first 3 chapters of Skybusters.
Yes, you did.
And I made the bold statement that I would have up to chapter 7 done by Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
It is now as of right now on my clock, Sunday, and I have hang on, let me see. 4 pages of chapter 4.
I respect that. It might not have been the goal that you wanted, but still, as a writer, I respect that.
I may have all of chapter 4 done by tomorrow, so I'll send in what I have. I'm not gonna hold out on you guys like I did last week, but
okay, yeah, because like
yeah.
I think the benefit and kind of like downfall of benefit and not benefit. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Like something that hasn't really benefited me at least, and I guess a running thing for a lot of us is even though we're in quarantine, that doesn't necessarily mean that our drive is there to continue story writing, because obviously like on top of like everything that we had, like on top of everything that there already is to worry about, it's just maybe that just doesn't really bring any kind of inspiration anymore. Like maybe because we're so focused on staying in and staying safe that like I guess certainly for me it's caused a little bit of panic now. Like I don't know about you guys, if you guys have been kind of panicking a little bit too much about quarantine, but like
I know that this is not I want to say this without sounding apathetic, because I am very sympathetic towards the situation, but I think in my life I'm just so stressed about a lot that it sort of washes over me now that we're in the middle of an apocalyptic scenario. It's sort of weird that like we're in this apocalyptic scenario and I should be very stressed and concerned about it, but I feel like I've reached such an elevated state of stress and anxiety that it's all sort of washed over me, and now I am in a state of calm with an extremely elevated heart rate. It's almost like shock. It's almost like my body's going into shock. Like I'm just I want to say it's like the first stage of grief. You're just sort of in denial, and you're just sort of, it's just all washing over you, and you're like, this is fine. Everything is fine. It's like that picture of the dog in the burning house where he's like, this is fine.
Yeah. Mark, do you feel the same?
Or... Yeah, I mean, I've had to compartmentalize it, right? Like, on the one hand, I'm still working, so like, when I get to work, I kind of have to put away my fear and anxieties over it and just try to get a job done. But then when I come home, like I live with my mom at the moment, and like 2 weeks before like this really became a big thing, she had like just gotten over pneumonia.
Oh, yikes.
So like, yeah, it's been a little bit, you come home and that's when all the stress and anxiety hits again, where you're like, wait, I've just been serving like hundreds of people, and then now I'm coming home and I have no idea what I'm passing around at the moment.
Yeah.
So there's like a very rigid, come home, touch as little as possible, go straight downstairs kind of thing, clothes into the washer, me into the shower. Like, it's this whole big deal when I get home now, so.
Yeah,
it's a little weird.
Yeah, like for everything that this pandemic has brought, and you know, I'm about to get pretty cheesy, but I mean, how else am I going to end this already chaotic episode? But like I think one of the main benefits of this pandemic has been, I guess, just in general, this Discord and like us coming together as friends, because you know, it's, for one thing, it's certainly helped keep me entertained over not losing my mind. I mean, I've lost my mind tonight, but like, it's nothing against you guys. But it's just like, finding people that like that kind of get it. And I talked about this like a few times already, but like finding people that get what you do and get that you're a writer and whatever, like it's nice to kind of understand that you have that now. At least for me, like it's nice that I have that, because then I can upload my stories to this group chat and to get your opinion on things when you guys can, and that means a hell of a lot. Like I didn't have that, I think, like even just a few months ago with actual friends. And so for everything that quarantine has brought, like, it certainly has brought on a couple, like, a few good things.
Yeah.
And
and I don't want to get all like pseudo philosophical, middle of the night stony pseudo philosophy bullshit, but I think there is like kind of a tranquility to be found in something that you can't really do anything about, if that makes any sense. Like, I think if you have an exam that's coming up, let's say, for example, like if you have an exam and you're cramming and you're studying, you can be like at the peak of stress because like oh, I could fuck this up so badly, I want this to go well, but I could fuck this up so badly. And I feel like in this situation, I'm not saying we're gonna get to like anything like actually apocalyptic, but I don't know. I feel like, for me at least, there's a sort of like I guess, in knowing that like I can't do anything to fix this, and that it's not really my fault. It's not really like this isn't really on anybody. This isn't anybody's fault. This is a bad situation, and we're doing what we can. Hopefully, we've like flattened the curve enough. Hopefully, and there won't be like a second wave, and this won't continue in the next year. Maybe, who knows? Who knows what will happen? But I feel like there's sort of a I don't know, I found some sort of peace in the idea that like whatever happens with this situation happens. And I don't know. I feel like because there's nothing I can do to change it. Like when you're studying for an exam, you have stress because you're like, I can do something to fix this, and I want to do something to fix this, but I have to work really hard to get to a point where I want to be. But where this virus is concerned, like, I'm not a scientist and I'm not a politician. There is nothing I can do.
Mm-hmm.
And like I feel like a lot of people, I feel like it's a very corny and unhelpful thing to just say, oh, don't worry about it, because it's like, great, thanks, you told me not to worry about it, I'm cured. But I do believe that there's if there's nothing you can do about a situation like this where I'm like, there's nothing I can do, it's like no matter what, it's like, okay, I found out what would have happened no matter what. It's something that I think I learned a while back in high school, in regards to the weird swerve, but it's related, I promise, to like but in regards to rejection, because rejection is something that everyone deals with, and it's just it hurts in the moment, but then you realize, like, I think you get to a certain point when you grow up and you just sort of realize, like, okay, I found out what would have happened. There's nothing I can do to alter the situation, because like within what I have control over as a person, I can't change someone else's mind about me. I can't personally create a vaccine for this virus. So I shouldn't like put it on myself. I shouldn't put the stress of this situation. I shouldn't put the pressure or responsibility of the situation on myself. And like, that's not to say people shouldn't take responsibility for their actions during this, but I feel like the stress of the world should not be on every single individual person.
Yeah. I guess ultimately, just to close things off, I guess ultimately, like, there's only really so much that, as a writer, as an artist, as a person, as whatever, like, there's only really so much that you can do sometimes. And
exactly,
it's probably best to, sit back, realize what you're doing, or realize what you can do, and be appreciative of that.
Yeah.
And
that's not to say that we don't have a purpose. We're artists. I think the best thing we can do right now is to keep, trucking on at, keep at it. Like, maybe, I mean, if in all this bad situation, I write something that someone reads and it makes them smile, I've accomplished like all that I have needed to in this situation to me.
Yeah, like
to my mind.
like who would think that, you know, in maybe 5 years, 10 years time, when we're all more than like hopefully all huge successful writers, you know, this is something that, you know, people are going to be referring to as this is our origin story.
Yeah,
Like we all what the fuck am I trying to say? Like our collective origin story, right? Like this is something that this quarantine, for everything that it did, like it brought together a group of very passionate, very talented writers and created the Ink Guild. I don't think like any other kind of circumstance would have brought us together like this, and for that I'm appreciative of it. You know what? I think after a chaotic episode, I think we'll wrap it up there. So, yeah. So, I guess for everyone who's still stuck around, thank you for listening. As usual, I'll leave our Instagram handles in the tag. But Mark, do you want to plug your Instagram, or because I guess that's just what we're all gonna collectively plug at this point.
Fair enough.
Yeah, because I know
I'm not even sure I remember what it is.
I'm sure I'll find it, but like, yeah. So if you guys also want to check out Mark, he does a lot of music on his Instagram lately. Like he is a pretty talented drummer on top of being an already very talented writer. So definitely do check him out. And I guess before I get to our actual final sign-offs, like I do want to, I guess, pass along a final message to anyone who's really listening before we, you know, and that is, I guess, be appreciative of what you've got. And, you know, whether or not you're a writer who is just starting out, or whether or not you're a writer who has been writing for like X amount of years, like understand that you have a lot to you. And like whether or not you're stuck in quarantine or whatever, like you've got something special waiting. And when we all come out of this, I'm ready to see everyone's stories come out, and we all rise together like that. So, I guess as a final thing, we were talking about music earlier before I got cut off. So, for each of us, what is one song that you would want to recommend to listen to when you write?
Pictures at an Exhibition by the Piano Guys.
Nice.
I was just gonna say I forgot to mention her earlier, but another composer, Yuka Kitamura. She does the Dark Souls music, the Bloodborne music. She's a god, and the song I would recommend from her is "Deacons of the Deep" from Dark Souls 3. It's a beautiful song.
And for my recommendation, I was talking about Julie Elvin earlier, and my choice would be Warrior Princess by End of Silence, featuring Julie Elvin. Definitely do check that out. It's a great piece for action. So, with all this being said, thanks everyone for listening. Thanks for bearing through all this. I mean, you know, through everything. And we hope to see you guys for the next episode. Have a good night, everyone.